Yesterday was the spoiler for Coercive Tendency, the massive new attack reaction for Arakni. So today I'm going over a simple, straightforward, and effective list utilizing this new card. After I go through the list, we'll also talk budget options for each of the pricier cards. So join me today building a deck with the new tech for the Spider. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. So yesterday was a big reveal for my spoiler for Heavy Hitters, Coercive Tendency. And man, this card is a doozy. So what I wanted to do today was kind of revisit a quick little list with, that's right, OG Arakni incorporating this new card. Now, before we go into the list itself, kind of a fun story around this. When I built this deck originally, because it was not yet in February, because it hadn't been spoiled and all that, right? I added Titanium Bauble into the slot to kind of mark where this card would be. And as we go through it, it's still not in there as of the time I'm doing this, so it is Titanium Bauble. However, since then, there's been some jokes arising on Twitter. Everyone's like, oh, this card is effectively Titanium Bauble, which, I don't claim to be the best Flesh and Blood player out there, so maybe someone can explain to me why this card's not good. I think this card seems pretty good, right? I think this card alone, right? So reminder, look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, and then rearrange them in any order, and then banish the top card of the deck. Again, I argue that if this was a blue defends for 3 non-attack action that did just that, people would be going out of their minds for it. So not best fad player. Maybe someone can explain to me why this card's not good, but I think it is. So let's go ahead into the deck that we've got here, and of course the link is below. Now, thus far, of the very limited success that OG Arakni has found, it has been from a fatigue style build. But that's not the approach that we're taking in this deck. Instead, I'm focusing hard on the 0-4 contract cards with the goal of maintaining pressure with maybe even just 1 card in hand. And while yes, it certainly has some fatigue vibes, it's really more of a mid-range approach against most opponents. Obviously, we're on OG Arakni here, and I'm a big fan of Flick Knives. So what we're running on the loadout here is Whisperers. I really like Whisperers. I do know that there's an advantage to running Snapdragon Scalers and that it doesn't have to hit. But I really like being able to buy back Whisperers and be able to do really cool things into Codex of Frailty. I'm a huge fan of Flick Knives. I think it is the right package to run when you are trying to do reacts specifically, because you can do the thing where you flick your knife before their defense reaction resolves, and then it gets -1. It's very effective. I'm running Mask of Perdition here. Not only is that good for banishing things, but also keeps the cost of the deck a little lower, all right? Perdition is like a $4 card, and Crown of Providence, I think, still like in the 50s, right? So you can do the quick math there. And then I like Redback Shroud. There's only a couple cards in this deck that Redback Shroud actually works on, specifically Razor Reflex. You could run Tunic if you want, but honestly, with the way this deck's built, I think you're going to be much happier with Shroud because it can block, you can use it, and if you need to buy it back, you'll probably be buying back the Whisperers first, but you could definitely do that. Then, of course, we have all 4 knives, so you have the flexibility. All right, so going into the main deck here, again, you can see it down there. There's our Titanium Bauble, which is obviously a placeholder for Coercive Tendency. What you can very easily see in this deck is that we're running a lot of the 0-4 contracts. We do have Annihilate the Armed because it's pretty phenomenal. There's not a lot of decks out there that don't run what that's after, so that makes sense. We have CNC mainboard. We have E-Strike mainboard. Again, this deck in of itself, if we go up to the top, this is an $800 deck, right? That gets pretty pricey pretty quick. So after we go through this, I do want to talk some budget options. If you just want to run this deck overall, it actually can be relatively cheap, depending on how you want to go. Right, so 3 Annihilate the Arms, 3 CNCs, absolutely phenomenal in a deck like this. I'm running red and yellow Cut the Chase, not the blue version. E-Strikes ×3, and then for the contract cards, we have Fleece the Frail, Leave No Witnesses, no duh there, right? That card is absolutely phenomenal. Plunder the Poor, I do have 3 Razor Reflexes, then Sack the Shifty. I have 3 Sink Belows. Slay the Scholars is in here as well, again, another 0-4 contract. We then go into the yellows, looking at Codex of Frailty, right? That's part of the reason this deck's up there. That card is not cheap. I personally only own 1 of them. So I'm going to have to figure out other things like that. But you know what? You can go put in Cut the Chase or whatever. right? We have 3 Eradicates. I love Eradicate. That's such a dirty, dirty, dirty card when you catch him on a react. I'm playing the Shred, yellow and blue. A lot of folks I've seen play the red Shred, which basically works well on D-reacts. I mean, that's primarily what it's there for. But I find that the best value is out of the yellow and the blue. So I am not running red Shred. Concealed Blade. Running 3 of those. I very much like those in this build because, again, I'm running Flick Knives, so it gives me a +1 react to get over the top, maybe get my contract thing off, and then you can refill one of your slots, albeit with an inventory dagger. You can't necessarily get that dagger back, although we did, moments before I shot this, see the new spoiler over from TCG Talk where you can actually buy your dagger back, which is pretty hot. So shout out there. I will link their video up there in the corner as well. Nicely done there. Surgical Extractions, thankfully that card has significantly reduced in price. And then we have 3 Coercive Tendencies. Going into the inventory, we have 3 already deads. Okay, it's a popper, it's a contract card, it's a good card, and so it's there as well. Do keep in mind that's another card, it's like $20, $25 in that range. So perfectly reasonable for you to find an alternative option there. Frailty Trap is absolutely phenomenal in the right decks or against the right decks. 3 Oasis Respite, 1 Remembrance, and then we've got 2 Null Runes. I wanted to run 3, but I ran out of room. So that's something that you could be doing. So that, again, is the deck overall. I honestly think the play style here is pretty straightforward, right? You're going to be largely every card in here, every single card in here, except for Frailty, which you're not going to want to defend with anyway, defends for 3, right? So you defend, actually, that's not true. Razor Reflex defends for 2. I take that back. All right, so you have 2 sets of cards that defend for 2. My apologies. Obviously, Remembrance does not, but y'all get it. You're running that, obviously, in a different scenario, right? You're going to bring that in for match you think is going to go a little longer. I just want to bring you up to speed on some of my favorite plays. I think Leave No into Codex into Leave No is one of the dirtiest plays in Flesh and Blood, right? If you can get Leave No Witnesses, you have a Cut the Chase or something like that, and then you make sure to pop your boots so you get Go again on the hit. Do whatever, like if they had it in there, it's gone. Either way, they're going to have a free arsenal. Into Codex of Frailty, they have to fill their arsenal, obviously assuming they're not on Dorinthea or something like that, maybe, right? But in general, they're going to have to fill their arsenal. Then you're throwing another Leave No with even 1 less card in their hand. That is such a dirty play. One of my favorite plays in Flesh and Blood. Just remember, if you do have that react in hand, you need to clear your hand, or you want to clear your hand before you play Codex of Frailty, because you will have to discard. So you ideally want to have an empty hand, load Codex Frailty being your last card. You'll get it. Do the thing, maximize your value, put them on the back ropes. Absolutely dirty play, right? So other than that, this is not as fatigue heavy. I mean, that's, that historically, that's where Arakni has done well, is in a fatigue type strategy build. So that's not where this one is. And now what I'd like to do is kind of shift focus, and we'll go into some of the budget chat for how to do this deck. All right, folks, so now what I have up is the budget build, which is also in the deck list below. So you can see that I've gotten the price down to $140. Now, granted, to many of us, $140 is not what we would consider to be a budget build, and I will walk us through kind of the choices that I've made. All right, so first off, CNC. CNC currently, as of the day I'm shooting this, is an $80 card, right? That's $240 for a playset. That's what's making part of that price go up so much. This one is very easily swappable with 2 options, Death Touch or Wreak Havoc. Both of those are poppers. Wreak Havoc obviously is the closer swap in, but Death Touch also works very well with granted Codex of Frailty, which is the next card we'll talk about, because Codex of Frailty is currently a $60 card. Now, this is probably the trickiest one in the deck because there's no great option for this card, right? This card kind of does what it does, and it's really good. Now, you could backfill it with one of the other codexes, and though they're pretty cheap, $5, $6, something like that, Codex of Blood Rot or whatever. But I just don't really see why you'd want to do that. They don't quite do the same thing. If you're doing Blood Rot, again, it throws a Blood Rot, but that's not really what you're trying to drive at. So I don't think you necessarily do that. And I think, and what I've chosen to do here, I actually backfilled it with a blue Cut the Chase, right? See right there, blue Cut the Chase. So that's what I backfilled it with. All right, now Black Tech Whispers is a $50 card. I really love the card, but it's very easily swapped in with Snapdragon Scalers, which is like a 3-cent card, if even that. So that one's a very easy choice to make. Already Dead is missing from the sideboard. You'll notice this one, again, is something that you can easily swap in with really a 6 of your choice. If you're doing that and CNC, then obviously you can't do Death Touch in both locations. But again, if you do like a Wreck Havoc and a Death Touch, I think those are very easy swaps. That'll again save you a lot of money there. And then if you want to pull, Remembrance is not that expensive of a card, but if you don't like it or you don't want to pay for it, I think that one's very easily makes room for Nullhood. Okay. Now, with those changes, one more that I forgot, excuse me. So I have Scar on the Scar for a Scar in here, which is swapping for E-Strike. E-Strikes, again, are in the grand scheme of E-Strike's history, they're actually not that expensive anymore, but it's still a very expensive card. So if you swap that out as well, it helps to bring that price down. And like I said, what we land up with right here, which is the deck I've linked below, the budget version, is 140. Now, again, 140 is not really budget. I completely grant you that. But I've left it here because I have left in the 3 big M's, right? Specifically, Leave No Witnesses, Eradicate, and then Surgical Extraction. Now, let's talk about these cards. So Eradicate for ourselves is only like a $3 card. So I don't think that one's going to give people much heartburn. But Leave No is a $10 card, and Surgical is a $15 card. In my opinion, I really think you should play with all of them. I think that's kind of what you want in order to make this deck work. That said, if you have to make decisions, which is perfectly reasonable, I think you want to go with Leave No Witnesses. Okay. Surgical Extraction, I think there are enough backfills out there. That's obviously been a sore subject in the past with videos we've talked about. When it was a $40 card, again, I'm saying for $40, probably don't buy it. For $15, maybe you do. I get it. That line may be different for other people. So if you don't want to do that, there are plenty of other blue backfills out there that are not a big deal. Okay, and then obviously the wild card in all of these discussions is we're building the deck around Coercive Tendency. So where will that end up when the set releases? But again, we have to 3-craft and look out. Right. So again, those are my recommendations for a budget style build that still maintains a lot of the function of the deck overall. Okay, but the rest are relatively cheap. You'll also notice that in this particular build, I actually tossed in Findall's Fighting Spirit for a popper instead of Wreck Havoc. That's something you could absolutely look at as well. So anyway, both decks are below. Hopefully you enjoy having the budget option as well, even though, like I said, I grant it's not complete budget. I did not do like a uber budget one, but at some point we got to draw the line and people can start making their own decisions. So anyway, those are the 2 decks for today. Hope you enjoyed this on your Saturday, kind of as a follow-up from yesterday. Let me know what you're thinking. What kind of builds are you going to be looking at? I'd love to hear your takes below. Is it still Fatigue? Do you think we can mid-range? I think this is at least worth a shot. Let me know what you think. Nothing else. Go Commando.